All right, so we have the top 10 albums of February. This was actually a great month. This is one of the better Februaries on record in the last 7 or 8 years, and a month that definitely challenged in terms of keeping up with the glut of releases at the end of the month. So a lot of the stuff on this list came out kind of in the last day of the month. So we're catching up here. I do usually tend to include a top 20 overall when there's so much runoff and so many good things to talk about. I would say each of these 10 up front are totally worth listening to all the way through, no matter what form of metal you're into. So we'll get right to it with Toughness's Black Respite of Oblivion at number 10. This is a technical death metal band in an old school style. They've chopped off some of the Morbid Angel influence from their sound and focused very much on a Demilich appropriate sound. They've got a lot of guest spots from Will Smith of Afterbirth on this, and overall, you couldn't ask for a better record in this style with this much thought and care put into it. It really is a tribute to Nesmith in most ways, but it's also just a good record. It's a good death metal record. The riffs aren't as complex and strange as one would think. The song structures could use a little bit more technical machinery, but overall, it's a great showing, which is never too taxing, but is still thrilling as this style of death metal. I wouldn't say in the past that I was excited to hear another Hyrax record. No, not because any of them were bad, but we kind of got the idea after the band reformed. They put out a couple of really solid things, and then the songs got longer, they got more involved, and it was just kind of more standard thrash ready to go. Nothing wrong with that at all. But on Faster Than Death, they really cut it back to shorter songs, big impact, and the classic Hyrax sound we all expect to hear when referencing their 1985 and 87 albums. So I was just beyond excited to have this style of Hyrax back, and it was a great record. I love the lyrics. I think it has a lot to say here in a short amount of time, and it's just generally worth everyone's time to learn what this band is all about and give them some due respect. Swing bodies, swing like this. Cold steam rises from the marsh. Sling the prisoners, begin to mutiny. Rather die than live like a slave. Dead corpses, never dying. Black soul. At number 8, we have Vudis's Emanating Sparks. This is the second full-length album from this Swedish melodic black metal band, and this is just one of the better bands in this style around. Not only do they find a really unique way of exaggerating those sounds, but there's also a little bit of interest in Watean beyond the dissectionisms that are on this record. They've cut some of the longer form pieces and taken away some of the chaos of their original sound and pulled it into something that is, a little bit more approachable in 4 to 6 minute chunks. They still bring dramatism. There are big rock solos. There's quite a fine production value going into this thing, and they put on a good show. But there's certainly a feeling of refinement, of continual improvement on their work, and that translates really well here to just a great black metal album for my taste. I think heading into number 7, Carnage Gathers, from British Columbia-based death metal band Grave Infestation, I knew what to expect because this band has been completely consistent even though they've only put out a handful of releases. As a sophomore full-length, they've done everything right here. The production values are bigger, the rhythms are more personalized, it's a mean-assed, late 80s sounding death metal record with some hardcore punk in there too. That's just kind of the bones of the machine. But if you're looking for something that is clearly aimed at ancient death metal sounds, there aren't a lot of bands that do it in a way that is as entertaining as this, and kind of picks that part of my brain that still loves albums like Severed Survival and whatnot. So check this one out. It's pretty essential for this month. At Number 6, we have Crimson Moon Evocations, the latest full-length album from Sepulchral Curse. This is a Finnish death metal band, and one that takes influence from melodic black metal and black death metal for their sound. There's certainly a little bit of melody in here, but it is more of a brutal fusion where something like intestine ballism or something like that would feed into this style, but they don't ever make it pretty. They make it dramatic. There's something cinematic but brutal about what this band does, and on this, I think, third full-length album, they've really pushed it into a more distinct place. They found a direction, they picked where they were going with it, and by doubling down, it makes for a record with a lot of conviction and some inventive rhythms along the way. Profanation of the Adamic Covenant is the debut full-length album from Ritual Ascension, a Minnesota-based, let's call them an atmospheric death doom metal band, one that is avant-garde in the way that it puts itself out there. There is certainly something to be said for the grave upheaval and portal side of things, just as much as there is disembowelment or death doom in general. So if you're a fan of abstract blackened death metal, death doom, this is a sublimely atmospheric record that is just creepy to all hell and has plenty of great riffs and just a really great vocal performance here. There's a lot of solid variation here. It's all very strange and experimental, and I think that is well worth listening to and paying some close attention to, because I think there's a lot of potential for iteration. If you're looking for riffs this month, this is probably the best place to get it. Atlanta, Georgia-based death metal band Metaphobic not only bring riffs, but they bring a ton of variation. They bring strong vocals, this incredible brutal drum performance. The whole thing is just great front to back. It's one of the best debuts I've heard in a long time from a death metal band, and I hope there's more death metal in this vein coming in the future that is got not only an active brain going, but also feels like it adds to the style and dark substance of pure death metal, and still has some of that old school flavor to it. It's still got something substantial there that sees some kind of vision through the ages and finds itself a place in there. Just a great record, and I've done nothing but praise it since I first heard it. I think there's something to be said for a black metal album that surprises you. And I shouldn't have been surprised by Decline of the Eyes Wilhelm, because it's part of an elaborate 5-album theme, and it all ties together. Their style has been explored in the past on several records. But this one hit me because it just had a lot of unexpected turns taken. It had a really satisfying production value. It had a very cerebral lyrics that are abstract and difficult to parse the actual subject from beyond what is suggested. So there was a lot to really pull from this experience that I found easy to recommend, especially if you're a fan of the more avant-garde or experimental side of black metal, but you still want something high fidelity and forward thinking, as it were. I think the comment that a lot of people generally leave whenever I talk about a band from Copenhagen and a lot of these great death metal bands is that their sound is obviously just a little bit referential. You can kind of pinpoint that there's a bit of a immolation influence to what Phrenelith are doing on Ashen Womb, and that's a bit of a change from a last record. It's almost a callback to their first record in some sense, and an improvement on all of those things in general. For me, Ashen Womb is just a fantastic death metal record. I could put it on for hours, and did, because it's just great front to back. I love the style of it. I think the production values are very high. Perfect album art. Everything, every box has been checked on this record, and it's still a pleasure to listen to after reviewing the hell out of it. Easily a number 2 spot here, and one of my favorites of the year so far. So at number one, there could only be one, and that is Chaos Inception's Vengeance Evangel. It's clear why this album gets the number one spot if you're a fan of riffs and death metal. I think that's a given if you understand the history of the band and how much of an interesting leap that this record kind of is. It's not really a callback to the fidelity of the second record. It's not a direct callback to the riffs of the first record. This is something more condensed and active and really obsessed with pushing as many riffs out as they possibly could, making sure they all count, and actually surprising at every single turn. There's just no ugly flaw to this record. Every part of it is exceptional. So check it out for yourself. Extermination.